So, good morning everyone. Afternoon. This is the June batch and the June and July batch both. Both, है ना? Okay. Tomorrow, can you people come at? No, I'll tell in sometime. Let's. So we have to start world history. We'll start with world history today. Governance. No. Start with. Acha, हाँ. Okay. Give me 1 minute. Give me 2 minutes. हाँ, 2 मिनट लगेगा. Okay. Let's start. No, I thought we have to discuss world history. But then I realized, okay. Did we end? Okay, so governance. Open the other folder in the brain. Actually, now see, one of the things when we look at your governance syllabus is that this is an area. So actually, your paper 2, when it comes in the mains examination, there are 3 portions to it. One is the static constitutional portion, the major constitutional debates. And that constitutional debate can also be asked in the context of whatever is the recent controversy going on. Say there is something on the right to privacy going on. So ma'am has taught you right to privacy in fundamental rights also, right? So they will ask in that context only the major constitutional debate, especially with respect to say Aadhaar. So one are those set of questions which will revolve around some current debate but has a clear constitutional basis. Okay, that's there. Or they will ask you some very basic constitutional stuff from things like Keshav Nanda Bharti to other cases. Now, that's one type of questions. The other type of questions in governance, the other type of questions relate to with a more current orientation, in the sense of whichever governance related issue is in discussion. Okay, and even in governance there are certain static areas and there are certain dynamic areas. Just like in constitution, the static portion is there, and then you have whatever is the current controversy and the constitutional basis of that controversy. That is one kind of questions they ask. In governance also they ask on the similar lines, and apart from that there is IR. So we'll focus on the governance aspect first. Now in terms of governance, actually what are the topics that we are going to cover? Firstly, there are some topics which are more static, which often really don't change much. Okay, these are topics related to, and they also give you 1 or 2 questions maximum in a year. There are things like Citizens Charter. There was a question in your mains examination recently on Citizens Charter. Similarly, e-governance. There was a question on e-governance last year, right? Then, apart from Citizens Charter and e-governance, the other topics are things related to other aspects of what we call as good governance. These are lines mentioned in your syllabus clearly. Okay. Citizen charter, e-governance, good governance. Now good governance is a minefield. In the sense ki what all comes in good governance, everything can come in good governance. Okay, it's like Vikas. Okay. So good governance can include a number of topics. One of the things are firstly about RTI, issues and challenges. The other thing is about Lokpal, issues and challenges. The other thing is about the CVC and the CBI, issues and challenges. These are three major institutions that they can ask you questions. In my view, a question on Lokpal is long due. Definitely this year. Abhi to chal raha hai search committee. Right? The search committee will search engine mein kuch chal raha hai abhi to something they will search. Question will come. Finally, it is the inaugural year of Lokpal. 5-6 years after it was formed. Act pass hone ke 5 saal baad tak Lokpal is nowhere to be seen. So finally this year Lokpal exam may be will come and probably in reality may also come. Okay. So we should know Lokpal issues and challenges. Issues and good governance is related to another RTI because helps in fighting corruption. Lokpal helps in fighting corruption. CVC, CBI helps in fighting corruption. But good governance is not just about fighting corruption. It's also about partly some service delivery, etc. Citizens charter, e-governance. But good governance is also about few other things. Abhi ek kitab hai Kuldeep Mathur ki. You don't need to read. But Kuldeep Mathur ki kitab thi Good from Government to Governance. क्या मतलब हुआ गवर्नमेंट टू गवर्नेंस का? ये बड़ी लेजेंडरी किताब है. From government to governance. What do we mean by this is that if simply creating a government would lead to governance, then there was no problem that was to be discussed. You know, you just create a government and the government will function. It will achieve its stated objectives and that will lead to governance. Matlab, government came, government built school, hired apparently teacher, and then primary education is available to all. If that is how, if it would have been such an easy thing to do, then government automatically would have translated into good governance. But that may not always happen. Because the devil is in the detail. Okay, and this book was actually the one which talked about government to governance, and it was talking in the context of what is the role of not just state actor, but non-state actors also in governance. Non-state actors matlab NGO, ये भी आपके सिलेबस में है. देखिए सिलेबस जो लिखा है वो ही समझ लें पहले, then it becomes very easy. If you try to understand the syllabus itself, it becomes very easy. मतलब government के अलावा institutions apart from government like the NGO sector can also play a role in good governance. Pressure groups. Pressure groups may affect the working of the government itself and may affect the whole governance process itself. So NGO भी है आपके syllabus में, pressure group भी है. What are pressure groups? What are NGOs? Issues and challenges. ये सब पे एक question बैठा हुआ है. Questions will be specific. They'll ask RTI and good governance. They'll ask Lokpal, CVC, CBI and good governance. इन सब के साथ एक और आता है CAG and good governance. सब पे question आया हुआ है पहले भी. On all these topics, separate questions have been asked before. Role of RTI, issues and challenges and good governance. Role of CAG, issues and challenges, good governance. Role of Lokpal, not a question yet, but definitely will come. CVC, CBI, आप देख ही रहे. You're seeing CVC, CBI, right? Their role of NGO, good governance, that has also been asked before. And these are specific subtopics mentioned in your syllabus. Citizens Charter. Citizen charter and good governance. E-governance and how does it aid good governance. So we've got to do these topics. Then there is a certain dynamic portion also. Issues related to poverty, health, education. सीधे सीधे आपके सिलेबस में लाइन है. Lines mentioned in your syllabus, issues related to poverty, health and education. I'm telling you all the things that we'll cover. Okay. Issues related to poverty, health and education. Or poverty alleviation schemes. Issues and challenges. Health, education. Health में, there was a question this year in your mains examination, community health. Similarly, Ayushman Bharat, issues related to healthcare reforms. We'll discuss 10 years of RTE Act, primary education, issues and challenges, higher education, issues and challenges. Primary education and higher education. अब देखिए सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट बात है इसमें. So there are certain dynamic areas related to this. That is what we're going to cover in this. One more is, two more issues here are there. One is the issue, the constant issue of electoral reforms. It's also a major issue of governance. Okay. So, ma'am will briefly discuss with you about election commission, etc. also, and I'll focus more on electoral reforms. Okay. Now, then local governance. Yes, basic about municipality and local government, constitutional basic provisions, ma'am will deal with you. Also talk to you about issues and challenges of local governance. Last thing to be talked here, apart from electoral reforms, local governance, there's one more thing that is to be talked, and that relates, apart from electoral reforms and local governance, I'm forgetting, but we'll come to it in a minute. But basically, these are some of the broader topics that we need to cover. Now, one of the first things, approaches here. For one or two topics, so I will dictate. Uske baad, I'll explain, I'll write, you'll write with me. There will be a, handout or something. Okay? Because we can't be covering these kind of topics merely by dictation. Otherwise, it will take months. And anyways, that's not the approach after a point of time to cover things. You have to be a bit more proactive as well. Okay. Now, that's there. So, now let's start one by one. Let's start with two very important issues. I will discuss these together. Citizen Charter, e-governance, good. Citizen Charter, e-governance, etc. We'll first start with the real, players. ये जो Citizen Charter, e-governance है, this all is important, but it is, and obviously from your examination point of view, but the burning things are about CAG, about the RTI, about the Lokpal, CVC, CBI, electoral reforms and local governance. Mains mein there was a question, I think last year itself, 25 years of good governance, of local governance. There's a question on local governance also, right? So that's there. And poverty, health and education. Okay, one more thing in my view that you must know is about, yes, so the other issue that I wanted to talk about was this whole aspect of Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. I'm pretty sure you've not talked about this anywhere else. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. देखिए ये बड़े एक इस पे एक बड़ी जबरदस्त किताब है. You don't need to read. Another book, very good book on India's sanitation missions. Okay, and this is the 150. This is the year when there's a very good chance that you will find a question on this also. Previously, 4-5 years before also, before the Modi regime, there was a question asked on sanitation then also. Okay, so there's a very good chance you can find a question on this also. So we'll discuss this also, issues and challenges. So that's it. Now let's start today with the first topic, and that is CAG. Once we do CAG, we look at other यहाँ पे cousins, RTI, Lokpal, CVC, CBI. Why am I saying they're all cousins? It's because of a reason. We'll come to that. Now, and this is, I'm discussing largely from the mains point of view. Those governance topics are largely in the mains examination only. Now, see, when we talk about CAG and issues and challenges, before that, I just want to spend some time talking about concepts that we'll be using again and again, generic level concepts. क्योंकि हम बार बार बोलेंगे corruption, good governance, corruption, good governance. So, let's just first for a minute talk about what is governance and what is corruption. पहले तो यही हो जाए, ठीक, define तो कर ले कि what is governance and what is corruption. So, how do you define? How do you define what? First, okay, let's not, so how do you define governance? First.
So governance is the process of implementing pre-established structure.
Governance is a process of implementing certain
Functions.
or basically implementing government schemes. Ek line mein you're saying is governance. But yes, that's true. That government is about governance is about service delivery. That's true. But is governance only about service delivery? Or does it have more wider, a definition of governance should be more wider to include service delivery, but something beyond that also? What is that beyond that? Inclusive growth. Madam said inclusive growth. Yes, that's true. Service delivery for inclusive growth. We're not getting into inclusive growth right now. But okay, one is about service delivery. For growth, inclusive growth, whichever variety of growth. But okay, one is about service delivery, agreed. But what apart from service delivery? People's participation. So governance is about people's participation. So, so now what you're doing is that you're telling what governance involves. I'm saying what is the objective of governance? One is service delivery. What is the other objective? Overall vikas of the society. Governance is firstly about fixing priorities. Governance is not just about service delivery, it's also about policy decisions which involve what? Identifying priorities and defining those priorities. And then service delivery on the basis of that priority. See, governance is not just about what? Making government schools. But making government schools making government schools will happen only when the government has decided that it's a priority to what? Focus on primary education. So, governance involves two things. First is policy formulation and then deciding and then carrying out its implementation. At a very broader level, I'm saying. Okay, implementation to achieve the stated objectives. Every policy, that is why governance involves first making the policy or deciding what are the policy objectives and then making a policy to achieve that objective. Government says, our objective is to fight corruption. That's the policy objective. How do you fight corruption? Is then you build mechanisms or institutions or procedures or whatever. Government says our objective is to bring education to all. So that's the policy objective. Once that is set, then you define, okay, education to all, involving public sector alone or public and private sector. Then, okay, if say both of them, then these are the schemes that we are starting to ensure that there is education for all. So there is policy formulation, fixing of priorities, policy formulation, and then implementation. This is all involved in governance. So, before we go to CAG itself, I'm not getting into heavy word definitions of what is governance. I'm just simplifying so that we just basically understand the whole process. So governance involves firstly what? Don't worry, you'll get, I'm just talking about the basic concepts here. When we'll come to good governance, we'll see other things where you'll get to. CAG, etc., I'll dictate. So that is kind of enough. Okay. So in fact, for CAG also I can get you handouts. That's also fine. I'll be writing, you can write with me, and the rest you can get a handout. I don't have to dictate, we'll save time. Governance firstly involves fixing policy priorities or policy objectives, and then formulation of policies to meet those objectives. That is the first thing about governance. So fixing policy objectives and formulation of policies to meet those objectives. Now, okay, if that's what governance involves, if that's a very basic definition of governance, then what is corruption? For private good, for personal gains. Use of public resources for personal gains. Yes, at a very generic level, totally correct. It is to say that use of public resources for private gains. Okay. Now, but let's get into a bit more detailed discussion of what is corruption. Now, this is a very, very important aspect. You can't understand governance or the role of anything in governance without first knowing what is corruption. भारतीयों को ये पता होना चाहिए कि करप्शन करने के कई पहले corruption is of many types and there are many ways of doing corruption. When if you don't know the ways of doing corruption, how can you fight corruption? It's a cat and mouse story. The reason for the existence of cat, the purpose of cat's life is to catch the mouse. If there is no mouse, what will the cat do? It is purposeless. So fighting corruption, anti-corruption agencies need corruption. Without that, what is the purpose of anti-corruption agency? So first, anti-corruption agency must know in how many ways corruptions happen. Then only you will fight corruption, and then only you will devise means of fighting corruption. Right? So what, देखिए, पहले तो what is corruption? As was just said, that it is utilizing public resources for making what? Undue, मैंने एक और word जोड़ दिया, undue private gains. पहली बात तो इसमें what is public resources? भारे शब्द. What is public resources? Public का है जो क्या नहीं है इस देश में public का. What is public resources? Taxpayers' money. Dangerous. which is not private. Partly that's a very good way of defining what is a public good. A public good is something that is not a property of one individual. Is park a public good? Yes. So what if you do is you go to Rajendra Park and then do what? Then आपने एक tent गाड़ दिया. In Rajendra Park, you go, you fix a tent and then you say that 6 to 8 yoga classes, 100 rupees per class, please pay, and you can do yoga class in the public park. Is that corruption? Yes, that is corruption. My dear, first understand types of corruption. If you have not taken the permission, if the state has not given you the permission, or even if you got your friend to call ki koi aayega nahi police wala check karne, but you're not paying any taxes to the state, you're using a state commodity. Now, you are also entitled as a private citizen, you are entitled to go and use the park. It's taxpayers' money. It's everybody's park. But you are now using that land and that resource to make a private gain. That's not the problem that it's a private gain. The problem is it's an undue private gain. Matlab, you can put up that camp to do yoga in that park, provided you obtain permission. And for obtaining that permission, you are likely to comply with certain conditions. At the same point of time, if you are making economic gains, the state may say that you have to pay this much tax. You can use a public resource for your private good, provided it is not a undue gain that you're trying to make. Even that is corruption. Okay, so वो बस वो वाला नहीं कि 100 का नोट आया नीचे से, that is corruption. Okay, that's not the only corruption that we are talking about. So that's first. But then corruption can be of many types, sir. More and more complex ways are always devised of doing corruption. It keeps advancing all the time. Broadly, we categorize corruption into two categories: collusive and coercive. What is collusive corruption and what is coercive corruption? Broadly, we categorize corruption into two types: collusive and coercive. Now, what is collusive corruption? Coercive corruption is often, I can define in one line. What? You come to passport office, you're supposed to get, your documents are complete, you have submitted 2 weeks ago, your passport is made, I'm the passport officer, you come to collect, I say, I don't like your face, I'll not give. Abhi I'm busy, kal aana, abhi I'm busy, kal aana, abhi I'm busy, kal aana. Ek din 500 ka note comes, aa jao. That's coercive corruption. Denial of a public service that you were rightfully entitled to. That, and with the expectation that the service provider wants to make an undue gain. That is coercive corruption. So coercive corruption is again, what is, isn't it utilizing a public resource to make undue gains? Yes, that passport officer is utilizing public resources. You paid taxpayers' money, you have fulfilled all the conditions, but I am still not giving your passport. I am that public authority who is using his position to make undue gains by denying you a service. So that's coercive corruption. So coercive corruption is often related to either denial of service delivery, denial of service delivery to citizens entitled to it. by denial of service delivery to citizens entitled to it by the service provider. अभी इसमें हर तरह की प्रजाति का करप्शन है. How? Suppose government is not giving passport itself, has outsourced that job to third person, TCS. TCS has been outsourced the job of running the passport office, and it is TCS ko government has given the contract. TCS will provide services. TCS officer is not a government servant, but he is also denying service delivery. So service delivery denial, something that you are entitled to, is coercive corruption. It's by the service provider, which can be state or non-state, provided he is providing services on behalf of the state. Okay, that's coercive corruption. Collusive corruption, ये इस पे ज्यादा फोकस करना है हमें. Both parties are agreeing, so then that becomes collusive corruption. Suppose you are the same individual who comes to me for passport, and you're like, sir, I have just committed 2 murders, I want to leave, please give me a passport. I will like, sir, 1 lakh rupees. Okay, sir. Passport delivered 1 week later to your house, you run away. What is that corruption? Collusive corruption. You also gain, I also gain. Service provider also makes gain. Service recipient also makes gain. पर ये तो बड़ा टुच्चे लेवल का हो गया. Let's up the game. There is a very low level of corruption. 1 or 2 murders only you are escaping. Collusive corruption, अलग लेवल पे. समझ गया? SBI बैंक चेयरमैन Kingfisher wants loan. It's the king of good times. Doesn't work for the bad times anyways. Kingfisher says, sir, we need loan of 5,000 crores. SBI chairman says, yes, sir, there is a procedure, please follow. Give all the documents in the required order. We will do due diligence and we will give loans. Kingfisher says, okay, sir, we have filled the form. Form says that you need to have assets. You need to give a bank guarantee. Kingfisher says, yes, sir, we are giving guarantee. Guarantee of the brand Kingfisher. We don't have any property to give as a guarantee. We only have the brand value as the guarantee. Please accept. Bank says, I like the king of good times. Accepted. Your guarantee is accepted. Loan given to Kingfisher. Flouting all norms of due diligence. Loan is given to Kingfisher by SBI chairman. Then what happens? Airline collapses, Kingfisher makes losses. Then what happens? Then, okay, Kingfisher can't pay back the loan, so what will be done? Its bank guarantee will be auctioned. So bank guarantee is auctioned. What is there to be auctioned? Kingfisher. Zero. What happened? SBI made a loss of 5,000 crores. Now comes the tricky part. You give loans. Loans will result in non-performing assets sooner or later at times. That is why there is a certain amount of risk involved. But the loan provider, that is SBI, did not do due diligence. And because of that, it did not ask for any guarantee. And when SBI did make loans, and when Kingfisher went bankrupt, there was no assets to sell with the SBI from where it could recover its money. If not the whole 5,000 crores, at least 2,000 crores, at least 1,000 crores, something. But all it had was a zero. What happened? CBI came. Arey kahan ho bhai? Corruption. Kaise de diya loan? CBI finds out SBI did collusive corruption. Nobody protested as long as things were running fine. Who lost the money? The exchequer, the state exchequer made losses, even as all other party made gains on its behalf. That's collusive corruption. Win-win relationship for service provider and service recipient. But who loses? The state. And when state loses, who loses? The common man, the taxpayer's money. The taxpayer also loses money by giving education to JNU students. I agree. But it also loses money by this route. Okay. And more often than not, there are countless examples and countless new ways of doing collusive corruption. हर बार एक नया प्रजाति, एक नया तरीका ढूंढा जाता है for doing collusive corruption. Though in the popular consciousness, corruption is more of the coercive variety, crony capitalism and many other ways are actually a bigger threat because they do collusive corruption. So, fighting corruption involves fighting perhaps both the varieties at the same time and realizing that the modalities of fighting both the types of corruption will be different. There is no Brahmastra, first rule of fighting corruption. There is no panacea, there is no single magic bullet, there is no single institution, there is no single mechanism that can fight corruption. Because corruption is corruption itself is of many types and requires coordination between different agencies. Matlab, one authority alone, a Lokpal alone also can't fight corruption. When we were there and Lokpal bill was being intensively debated, when people used to say, policy makers used to say, I'm talking 2011 when discussion started, that there can be no one way, there can be no one institution which can fight corruption alone. So I and my friends used to say, chor sala. He doesn't want to fight corruption. But he was right and I was a fool. 7 years down the line, I realized that he was wise and I was fool. Right. So that is there. After observing 7 years of corruption from variety of quarters, I have also come to the same conclusion that that gentleman had reached much before. इसलिए बड़ों की बात कभी-कभी सुन. So now so in collusive corruption, if one is to define this whole collusive corruption, what I just told you, the example of Kingfisher and SBI is a real example. It's not a hypothetical story I just gave you because this is relatable and this is something which was a clear, real, recent example. Okay, next is, so collusive corruption we can say involves what? Often a collusion between service provider and the end recipient both of whom make what? Both of whom make undue, बार बार वही बात, undue gains. At the cost of the state or the state exchequer. क्या? बिल्डिंग बनी, फायर एग्जिट नहीं है, fire safety audit fellow comes, I am the owner of the building, I say, sir, I made a 10, 20, 30 crore ka building, I don't have money to put a fire exit. Fire safety engineer says, I understand. You also understand. Building owner, fire safety audit manager both understand. There is no fire exit in reality. On paper it is there. All boxes ticked, on paper it is there. Then one day fire happens. Some people die. Then next day, audit, all sealed. 2 months later, I understand. Collusive corruption. Who is losing? So it's not just about state exchequer. It's not just always about the money involved. It can also have at the cost of the state or at the cost of the public. Again, public good is being compromised to make private gains. आप आए picture देखने. How's the Josh? How's the Josh? How's the Josh? No fire exit, no Josh. So game over. It's not just about the money involved. It's also at times is about adversely affecting what? The public good. And public good may just not be about resources. It may be also about lives. Corruption also takes lives. That is how corruption takes lives. Fire safety audit hai bhi or nahi bhi. So that is there. Now if that is enough, now let's go to CAG. If you have already done in Pol Science with me, हाँ तो फिर मेरे पास कोई समाधान नहीं है बात करना, मतलब मेरा तो धर्म है. I'll repeat. Okay. नहीं, मैं क्या करूँ? I have to do. Next topic से. इसके बाद next topic RTI. हो गया RTI. चलिए दूसरे से चालू करते हैं. नहीं, then we'll come to something else. मेरे पास बहुत सारे टॉपिक है. इलेक्टोरल रिफॉर्म्स वो भी हो गया. देखिए पॉल साइंस पीपल डोंट मेस. ओके, सो इन द सेंस, सो लेट्स फर्स्ट डू सीएजी. आज तो सीएजी होगा. विल स्टार्ट विद द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक. कुछ और जो आप बोलेंगे वो चालू कर लें. और दोज डोंट वरी, दोज हु वांट टू स्टडी आरटीआई अगेन आई विल टीच. कोई दिक्कत. CAG. Let's start with CAG. जो Pol Science में has done, I can't help. I have to teach. Article 148 to Article 151 talks about the Comptroller and Auditor General. Ma'am will talk about appointment, removal, Consolidated Fund of India, all those things. Let me just briefly tell. The CAG is appointed by whom? By the President. On the advice of the Prime Minister plus the Council of Ministers. Appointed by the President, by the Prime Minister with the Council of Ministers. Then the CAG removal procedure is similar to Supreme Court judge. Then the CAG's tenure 65 years of age. Or how many years? Then who can be appointed as a CAG? Any individual with a significant amount of experience in public affairs. It doesn't say only the IAS, but more often than not, it is only the IAS. Okay. So there is, the idea is that it just says it must have, the individual must have significant experience in public administration and affairs. Then it is a constitutional body. Yes. Yes. And who said? Who said? Ambedkar said that the CAG is the most important constitutional office, as it is the guardian of the public purse. It is the guardian of the public purse. And here, it is the guardian of the public purse, that's fine. What is also there is that what are the functions of the CAG? First, what are the powers and the functions of the CAG? By CAG can ask firstly what are the functions, and then we'll come to the powers. It's to audit all expenditures and what? Receipts. Okay, now I remember one thing I forgot to tell you. We'll also discuss the UPSC lateral entry, governance. मेरे को बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग लगता है टॉपिक. चोरों की बारात में नए चोर आएंगे, नई रोशनी लाएंगे. That is what is lateral entry in one line. Sophisticated means I'll tell later. Don't worry, I won't give you a pessimistic view. I'll give you exactly the view that looks exactly the way it is supposed to look. पीछे की कहानी क्या हो गया? क्या हो गया? Lateral entry भी हो गया? सही? अच्छा, अच्छी बात है तो कोई बात नहीं. जिसका नहीं हुआ है उसको मैं पढ़ाऊंगा, जिसका हो गया है बहुत अच्छी बात. आखिरी में पढ़ाएंगे, आखिरी में. जिसको पढ़ना है वो पढ़ सकता है, वरना कॉमन टॉपिक्स. So, audit all expenditures and receipts coming to the consolidated fund of India. Coming to the consolidated fund of India. Please remember, it's not just about expenditures, it's also about receipts. बार बार ये बात उठेगी. Money that could have come to the what? the state, tax that could have been collected but was not collected, even these matters will be scrutinized by the CAG. It's not just about money spent, it's also about money which could have come but did not come or did come, whatever it is. Okay. So audit all, and this is about of which central and state governments. Please remember, not of local governments. Local governments, whether that's municipalities or panchayats, that they will not look into. Also, they will not scrutinize the expenditures of, oh sorry, पहले बोल देते हैं, sorry. It's okay now? Is this okay or no? Black only. It's too much blackness anyways in life. Okay. Central and state governments, however, it will not scrutinize the expenditures also of Dovalji, IB and RAW. Intelligence agencies, it will not. Please remember, intelligence agencies, army warmy ka, yes. Intelligence agencies only have been kept out of it. Okay. So that's there. Even though their expenditure happens from the CFI, they are not to be audited by the CAG. Then also what? Banking sector or financial institutions. This will be audited by whom? RBI. So somebody said RBI का audit करा लेते CAG से. No, RBI also is not audited by the CAG. It gets its own internal audit done. Okay, RBI also, they are not scrutinized by CAG. Okay. So please remember this much first. Next. So that's about the powers of the CAG. Also, for this particular purpose, sorry, this is the function of the CAG. For this particular function, the power of the CAG is it can summon all government departments to provide data of expenditure, finances, and even views. So on how that money was spent, etc. They'll have to, government departments will have to cooperate with the CAG. Do not ask me this question, what if they don't? What if you decide that you don't want to? It's okay. What happened? Supreme Court happened. I don't know whether you know, read or not. Typist in Supreme Court, read? No? Ambani ji ka order hi badal diya unhone. Rohinton Nariman is saying something else. That order, the person who's supposed to type order, dekhe, Ambanis have been sent by God. Anything can happen. So the person supposed to type an order of contempt in the Supreme Court does a spelling mistake, omits a word that the Ambani, Mr. Ambani has to be present की जगह not what एक आध शब्द ऊपर नीचे उन्होंने कुछ कर दिया. Then ultimately Rohinton Nariman is shocked. ये क्या हुआ? Ultimately the Chief Justice immediately dismisses. हाँ तो होने को तो कुछ भी हो सकता है, but normally it is not expected to happen. That that's there. So, but this is how it is supposed to work. Now, what are the issues and challenges? It's very simple. The issues and challenges. The issues and challenges is this, that the first issue is the procedure of appointment itself. अभी CAG का चल ही रहा है. But we will not talk about the current example because exam it becomes sensitive. Right. So, the procedure appointment. The first problem in the procedure of appointment is that it does not have any role for the opposition. But that's not just for the current CAG, that has always been the case. From Shashikant Mishra to before him was Vinod Rai, to many before him. Okay. The procedure of appointment is a procedure dominated by executive. With little or no consultation with whom? With little or no consultation with little or no consultation with the legislature or with the legislature. Now, why do we actually get into this detail of appointment, and why should the legislature be consulted in the very first place? You can ask this question itself. Well, that will come to. So, to explain that, let me just get into that whole process of CAG's significance. I told you, right? हमने एक line जो रटी हुई है हर जगह, that is that he is the guardian of the public purse. How does he really become the guardian of the public purse? Is that the CAG functions as a think tank. The role of CAG is to function as a think tank. It doesn't prevent expenditure. It acts only once expenditure has happened. Right? So you've heard that line also, कि it does post-mortem. Are post-mortems necessary? Yes. Before होना चाहिए. मरने से पहले ही कर दे पोस्टमार्टम. एक्सपेंडिचर होने से पहले ही कर दे. अरे रुक जाइए. Yes. Okay. Ma'am has called. Ma'am, just. बुलावा है. Okay, so sorry for the delay. We have to deal with political pressure also. Chota chota. Some news channel wanted to call ma'am for some TV debate on Pulwama. So what? Ma'am just wanted कि should we go? I said no ma'am, don't go. अरे क्या टीवी में आधे घंटे में कैसे आप मतलब उसमें वो 10 मिनट आपको बिठाएंगे और बोलेंगे बोलो, क्या बोलोगे यार? What will you say? So, हाँ, they may do anything. अरे नहीं भाई, उसके बाद वापस भी आना है. So, now RBI. So, one of the things that we were talking about that, okay, why is it the guardian of the public purse? Is primarily because, let's get into how does CAG actually function. CAG will ask a government department, say, Mr. Patra, ONGC. जो बता रहा हूँ, ये all real examples हैं. ऐसा नहीं है कि ऐसा नहीं हुआ. मतलब they will not call Mr. Patra, they will call ONGC. ONGC buys a company, GSPC, Gujarat State Petroleum Corporation. GSPC is a entity of the government of Gujarat. GSPC is doing oil exploration, say in the Kutch region. And it says that, we found oil. And basically, the government will soon start oil production. For this, we need to put up machinery. Tender of 2,000 crores, sir, has been given. Machinery has been procured. But oil was never found. Oil was never found. And now GSPC has made a loss. But ONGC का दिल आया हुआ है GSPC पे. So ONGC buys out GSPC. Common citizen doesn't understand what is happening. Who is GSPC? Who is ONGC? But ONGC is buying out GSPC with whose money? ONGC's money. That's ONGC's profit that it is buying out that money from. But ONGC is a PSU. Will the CAG audit the accounts of PSU? Yes. That's very important. Now, CAG asks ONGC, why did you buy GSPC? Why would you buy a loss-making company? CAG says ONGC doesn't seem did a very good economic acquisition. CAG writes in its report on ONGC about this and then submits its report to the whom? President. The president tables it in the legislature, primarily the Lok Sabha. Why? Because who's the guardian of the public purse? No, it's about the government is spending the money, the executive. The executive gets the budget passed where? Lok Sabha, not the Rajya Sabha, right? So the primary role is of the Lok Sabha. The speaker gets the CAG report, then tables it in front of the house. Which house? Lok Sabha. Then Lok Sabha sends this report to the mini parliament, the Public Accounts Committee, right? And this Public Accounts Committee is a mini parliament because it has representatives of all parties. It has representatives of all parties. It has representatives of all parties. It has 15 representatives of the Lok Sabha. Is PAC a body of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha or both? Both. But primarily a body of Lok Sabha. Right? And it does get 7 members from the Rajya Sabha also. Yes, sir, prelims के लिए भी important है. This whole procedure is important for the prelims examination also. Then the PAC, but if it would have been anybody else, any other government department, say it would have been the Ministry of Defense, the report would have gone to the PAC. Here on PSUs, the report goes to another body. That's the COPU, the Committee on Public Undertakings. So the role of the COPU is, it's another parliamentary standing committee. There are many parliamentary standing committees, and ma'am will discuss with you. Ma'am has discussed parliament. So awesome. That means that there are many parliamentary standing committees. One of the standing committee is the COPU, which scrutinizes CAG reports on PSUs. So chaliye, PAC makes its own report. It scrutinizes the report of CAG. देखिए कई लोग खुश हैं that CAG has voted for BJP. Some people say that CAG have voted for BJP on Rafale. Okay, by 2.6%. Okay, or whatever. But ultimately the CAG's report is only one of the documents that the PAC considers. Technically, the PAC scrutinizes the CAG report and uses all other evidences also. It may talk to experts other than the CAG on that field. It may talk to the ministry representative, the IAS officer. And then who prepares the report? On the basis of this consultation, the PAC report is prepared. Then this PAC report goes back where? Lok Sabha. Finally goes back to the Lok Sabha, where it is to be discussed and deliberated. So, for fighting corruption, if the CAG has to function, it requires an effective PAC. Don't be like me 7 years ago. That sir, CAG अकेले क्यों नहीं कर सकती? Why can't CAG do it alone? Why does it need the PAC? Why should not CAG file the case in the Supreme Court also? Why shouldn't the CAG, do everything? Let's give CAG investigation powers also, seizure powers also. सब दे देते CAG को. CAG will become a monster itself. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. No. Please leave something for other people also to do. No. CAG will do only what it is equipped to do, audit. Leaving other things to other entities to do. That's it. Okay. That's the first important thing to keep in mind. CAG doesn't replace other institutions, it will only aid other institutions. And CAG is a guardian of the public purse because it helps the Public Accounts Committee, which is a committee chiefly of whom? Lok Sabha, to carry out its function. That's the role of the CAG. And that is how you should remember it. Now, what about procedure of appointment? लेकिन नए नए तरीके के प्रोसीजर आते हैं करप्शन करने के हर बार. वैसे तुम्हें को याद आता रहता बार बार. The CVC did a case study of 100 top corruption cases, finding 100 different ways of doing collusive corruption. Parliament Prime Minister Relief Fund makes a hospital in Gujarat. From Prime Minister Relief Fund, a hospital is made in Gujarat. Once constructed, the operation of the hospital is transferred to a private player. So building built by government taxpayer money, run by a private entity, charging high rates. Who? Adani. Adani is running a hospital made by Prime Minister Relief Fund in Gujarat. अनेक प्रकार है, जितने लोग उतनी प्रजाति ऑफ करप्शन. क्या कर लेगा एक अकेला सीएजी? बट सीएजी विल ट्राई. So firstly, why is it that legislature must have a role? Because it is the PAC is dominated by whom? Other parties. And the PACs must carry, if the PAC has to carry out its role, it will depend on CAG reports also. Right? And if the CAG is to be the one whose report the PAC is going to depend upon, the PAC must have complete confidence in the CAG. So the parliament also, or the legislature, which also has the opposition, must have a say in the appointment of whom? CAG. It's as simple as that, isn't it? देखिए बड़ी सिंपल सी बात है that if the parliament has to depend on CAG, then the CAG must not be only appointed by the ruling political party. Otherwise, there's always a possibility of a conflict of interest. Practical example, शशि, इनका नाम ले सकते हैं आप? शशिकांत दास, सॉरी शशिकांत शर्मा, दास वो करंट आरबीआई वाले और उसमें हो जाता है. सो शशिकांत दास इज द सीएजी आफ्टर विनोद राय. ओके, he is appointed as a CAG in 2013 by whom? Appointed by UPA. UPA को आप कुछ भी बोल सकते. Appointed by UPA. Okay. In 2013, but he is becoming the CAG. Before that, he is a IAS officer. He was an IAS officer. Before that, he was in the Ministry of Defence, overseeing defence procurements from 2005 to 2013. Oversee defence procurement from 2005 to 2013. So he's functioned in the Ministry of Defence also, and now he is the CAG also. What if he would have signed the papers for Rafale and he is to scrutinize the Rafale deal? CAG, the Shashikant Das, the CAG audits Shashikant Das, the secretary in the Ministry of Ministry of Defence, responsible for defence acquisition, appointed by the ruling party with no role for the opposition. It will always raise questions. Same questions have been raised time and again for election commissioners, that it has no role for the opposition. If you look at, for example, what? The CBI. Contrast to that, the leader of the opposition, the ruling party, and now you have the Supreme Court. Earlier it was the CVC's opinion, whatever, right? If you see the CVC's appointment procedure also, it is bipartisan, right? That it has to have another entity or whatever, now the Lokpal, right? So you see many other bodies have a more bipartisan, a more consultative process where it's not just in the hands of the ruling party, but others. But in CAG, this is the first issue, that there is always the possibility of what? The appointment procedure is such that the possibility of conflict of interest, cannot be ruled out. Can it be ruled out? Nope. It cannot be ruled out. So what is the suggested reform? What is the way forward of the suggested reform for this? Is time and again it has been said that the suggested reform by every commission, the second ARC, the second Administrative Reforms Commission report, the Law Commission reports have often said that the procedure of appointment must be what? Bipartisan. The procedure of appointment must be by partisan, with a role for the opposition as well. Okay, a multi-membered body appointment committee must be appointed for what? The CAG must not be left only in the hands of the ruling party of the day. I hope that much is clear. Or otherwise there will always be the charges of suspicion. Mr. Maharshi, Rajiv Maharshi, खोलिए इनका चिट्ठा. If you open his diary, some say he is the blue-eyed boy of the Prime Minister. So somehow 2.8% तो फायदा हुआ ही है. Okay. नुकसान तो नहीं हुआ. That's there. So that's about the appointment procedure, the first issue and challenge. जो है यार शशिकांत दास शर्मा जो है, दास अभी है तो शर्मा पहले थे. जो भी है पहले शर्मा होंगे तो जो भी है शर्मा है, दास है, जो है कोई बात नहीं. भावना समझिए, भावना. Next, procedure of appointment is one issue. The next issue is what? You'll get a handout for this, okay? Don't worry. You'll get a proper handout, एकदम order में जैसे लिखना है आपको वैसे. But I'm explaining you the broader issues. The second issue, simple issue, is about, ये question आया था इस बार in your mains examination. Powers or jurisdiction. Issues and challenges with respect to it. Firstly, there are two issues here to be discussed. There are two issues to be discussed in terms of issues with respect to the powers of the CAG. That should, what are the, so when the money is spent by government departments, obviously the CAG audits. Okay, but what if expenditure or service delivery, expenditure is happening or service delivery is being done by the state in public private partnership. So in these cases, can the CAG audit private companies? देखिए, where did all this debate come from? This debate came in the post 1990s era, where you have what? You have a movement from government to governance. Actually, that book Government to Governance is based on this logic, that in the post or in the liberalization era, increasingly governments are relying upon partnerships with private players to provide services. As liberalization and privatization has proceeded, government is often hiring what? Private players to deliver services on its behalf. So I told you, Suppose there's a passport office. Today TCS runs the passport offices of the Ministry of External Affairs. Okay. In the sense that the government will hire service providers on its behalf from time to time. Okay. So in that context, what if service delivery is happening by a private entity on behalf of the government? Can the CAG audit private companies? Now, iska sawal jo hai, well, the answer is basically this, that suppose, dekhiye, the government is doing what? That the government is hiring a private company. You know, government does a what? Tender, and with this tender it hires a what? It does a tender for building highways. ABC, 3 companies participate. B is selected. Okay. And B is selected to construct under a BOT model, built, operate, transfer model. Heard about this? एक होता है EPC model. Heard about this also? देखिए छोड़िए, बेसिकली इंजीनियरिंग प्रोक्योरमेंट कंस्ट्रक्शन मॉडल पुराना स्टाइल जो था कि ठेकेदार और कॉन्ट्रैक्टर इज गिवन द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट टू कंस्ट्रक्ट द रोड एंड पास इट ऑन टू द गवर्नमेंट. न्यू मॉडल सर इज BOT. BOT is build and don't transfer directly. Build, the private player build, it operates, and while operation, even the cost of maintenance is partly to be collected by the end user. Okay, part of that is to be collected by the end user. मतलब क्या? Toll road, toll tax, and operate for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years and then transfer the infrastructure to whom? Government. Does it happen only in highways? It happens everywhere now. What? You want to use public toilet? 1 rupee, sir, 1 rupees. Please pay 1 rupees. Where does 2, 5, jo ho. At a certain level, if you want to use the road, highway, you pay toll tax. You want to use a bathroom, you pay 1 rupees or 2 rupees. इस देश में मूतने पे भी टैक्स. It's a tax. Maintenance cost, sir, maintenance cost. Why on earth are we paying taxes? Why on earth is anybody in India paying direct taxes? If every time a user has to pay an end user fees for maintenance purpose. But कोई बात नहीं, operate. तो क्या हुआ? Toll tax has to be collected. Now what? A portion of this toll tax goes to whom? Government. Why? Because you have been granted that tender. You will pass off a portion of the revenue generated from operating that in, say, the ratio of 30:70. The private player gets to keep 70% of the profit, 30% of the operational, revenue collected, 30% goes to the government, 70% stays, say, with the private player. ये सब लिखा होता है contract में when it is signed. Okay, now what happens is, this private player, what does he do? He under reports toll tax collection. He says, sir, only 20,000 vehicles are coming every day. In reality, 40,000 are coming. In reality, 40,000 are coming, but he's saying only 20,000 vehicles are coming every day. What is happening? Government share will fall. He is under reporting revenue. So what happens? Can the CAG audit this private company's data? That's the question. As long as it was a PSU, then there is no question. It stays with the government. The government, it stays with the CAG. The CAG can audit. But here the question becomes more tricky. Here the question becomes a bit more tricky. When it's a government PSU, central or state government run entity, say the National Highway Authorities of India, NHAI, its record the CAG can audit, but not of the private company, or it becomes a more tricky business. No, that I'm saying portion of revenue. Toll tax rate. It is to be decided by the private player. But all has to be mentioned in the bid. ऐसा नहीं है कि bidding होने के बाद हो रहा है. Everything has to be mentioned in the bid. Bidding document तभी बड़ा detailed होता है. And there is a clear-cut criteria on these criteria, it will be judged. So everything has to be decided beforehand. That is why it takes many rounds. Scrutiny of document, this, that, whatever. And it has to largely comply with the document. Now, this is what is happening. Yes, you had a doubt. Okay. So that is there. Now, if this is happening, the question becomes tricky because the private companies say, why should we get ourselves audited from you? Okay. Now, to settle this matter, the Association of Telecom Services Provider case, 2013, this case has said, the Supreme Court has said, देखिए, Constitution is silent on public-private partnerships. When the Constitution was made, there were no public-private partnerships. Right? So, it's like cyber security. It falls under central list or state list or concurrent list. Perhaps residuary or perhaps security में central में कहीं कुछ, it's residuary mostly. So that's that. Now what happens in such cases? What happens in such cases is that the Supreme Court has clarified in the Association of Telecom Services Provider case 2013, the Supreme Court has said that on two matters, as long as there is a explicit revenue sharing agreement, between the state and private entity, as long as there is an explicit revenue sharing agreement between the state and private entity, then the CAG can audit the accounts of the private company. And the private companies will have to cooperate with the CAG. Will have to cooperate with the CAG. The other thing, is that if apart from revenue sharing agreement, even if it's doing what? Service delivery on behalf of state, or let me not just complicate this for you, to simply argue that one is about service delivery here. So we'll not get into service delivery for now, but the other they are saying is that if there could be revenue generation in the future also. Okay, chaliye, let's simplify it for you. Just say this much, that if there is service, there is service delivery being done also, where money is paid, or where the cost of service delivery is borne by whom? State. Then, but cost of service delivery is borne by state, but provided by whom? Private entity. Then also there can be a what? Audit by whom? Now this is an even more tricky issue. Suppose Fasal Bima Yojana, Kisan Yojana, Bima pe Bima Yojana. Which Yojana is there also? Ayushman Bharat Bima Yojana, whatever Bima Yojanas are there. Health insurance, farmer insurance, accident insurance, every insurance state is providing you through some private insurance provider. Right? Insuring you against all kinds of calamities. Now, who pays for this insurance? The premium is paid by whom? The government. And the insurance provider is whom? The private player. There can be in the future. Now, these are things emerging now only. So, if the government is spending, say, 20,000 crores on the Ministry of Agriculture, say, spends 20,000 crores on giving what? Insurance, crop insurance to the farmer. It will ask whom? The respective ministry, the Ministry of Agriculture, please give us the data. We want to do the audit. The Ministry of Agriculture will give the data and say that these were the service providers. It can then ask possibly the service providers also, please give us the relative data on how many claims were filed, how many claims were settled. What is the claim filing is to settlement ratio? How much money has been disbursed? All of this. So these things will only happen in the future. You see, the potential of CAG is huge. In terms of if CAG starts auditing and will audit eventually a number of service providers, etc., ministries, it will ask this question that we say are the types of audit. The three types that we often talk about are the compliance audit, the financial audit, and the performance or proprietary audit. The performance audit, the compliance or proprietary audit. They are saying that there are three types of audits. ये basic audit है, which financial and compliance. ये very basic audit. मतलब if the Ministry of Agriculture had a fund approval of what? Say 50,000 crores. How much of this 50,000 crores did it spend? It say had 20,000 crores for crop insurance. Say it had 20,000 crores for Narega. Say 10,000 crore for other kinds of agricultural schemes, whatever. Suppose 50,000 crores it has. Firstly, the finance audit will ask what? the finance audit will ask what question? That has it spent this 50,000 crore in this financial year? Say 2018-19, they had 50,000 crores. How much of it was spent? Say in financial audit, it says that, sir, 70% of the funds allocated were spent. Okay. 70% of the allocated funds were spent. It's a financial audit. Compliance audit asks, okay, we had allocated this fund for different schemes. Did you use the funds allocated under the respective heads, or did you start diverting funds? Suppose CAG will ask, did you spend the 20,000 crores on Narega, or did you divert the Narega funds also to do Pradhan Mantri Kisan Bima Yojana? You can't do that. The budget sanctions money, not just at the ministry level, but for every scheme. That this money is allocated to this ministry for this scheme. That is compliance audit. Whether money allocated under the respective head has been used for the purpose sanctioned. ऐसे नहीं मनी आया नरेगा के लिए आपने लगा दिया बीमा योजना में कि 6,000 देना ही है. वोट तभी आएगा जब 6,000 आए. ऐसे नहीं कर सकते आप. You have to spend money on the scheme devised in the very first place. अरे at least Modi ji is giving 6,000 rupees. Previous ministry gave, previous government gave nothing. He is giving 6,000. So what about, so compliance audit asks a basic question whether the money spent was allocated for that purpose or not. Was allocated, spent money was allocated for that purpose or not. आप बोल रहे सर क्यों इतनी बकवास सवाल पूछ रहे हैं? Why do you need to ask so many questions? That's CAG's job. That's the reason why CAG exists. If CAG doesn't do this, then CAG is no purpose to exist. So these are two functions that CAG has been doing for time since immemorial. Since 1919. The Government of India Act 1919 is there. It is for the first time that a CAG institution is devised in the Government of India Act 1919. मैंने तब नहीं बताया, मैंने क्या क्या बताऊंगा. Government of India Act 1919, CAG was devised office. Then continues in 35 also, and after independence also, CAG's office continues. A law for empowering CAG specifically, defining its power and responsibilities, was passed in 1970-71, 20 years after independence. Okay, that's there. Now, but in the recent past 2 decades, the CAG, in the recent past 2 decades, CAG has gone ahead of low-key auditing functions. They are considered basic accounting functions. Money was spent on the fund or was spent on the issue that it was allocated. So these are basic accounting or low-key audit functions. Okay, so this the CAG has always done, and this the CAG has always been doing. The question that becomes is that what has been debated in the court also partly, in the Supreme Court also partly, and overall, should the CAG be allowed to do what? Should the CAG be allowed the question that has been asked is that should the CAG be allowed to do, or is the CAG's responsibility to perform what? Which audit? Performance or proprietary audit. Matlab, can the CAG look into government's expenditures and issue a report card? The performance audit, आपका performance audit, who does? Your school or college teacher. He'll do performance audit. He'll not ask how much time you spent studying. He'll see your answer, see your face, see your answer, see your face, give you marks. Performance, how well you have performed. So it's like a report card of the government. That is where it becomes tricky. Who likes a report card? Only good students. Average and bad students, they hate report cards. Often governments in India, report cards have not looked really good. They've always like B grade, C grade, D grade, E grade, F grade. Never gone near A grade. So, will they like the CAG? No. The CAG's performance audit aspect has been increasingly questioned in the past 2 decades by every political party which has been in power. That is including the BJP and the UPA. Both have questioned time and again that CAG's job is not to do performance audit. It must only do compliance and financial audit. But if it only had to do compliance and financial audit, it is argued that why would Ambedkar say that it is the most important constitutional office? It is supposed to do a performance audit. So basically, they are saying that, one of the things is when you look at, जो आप बार बार याद करके बैठे हैं कि सर यूके में है कंट्रोलर एंड ऑडिटर जनरल, वी डोंट हैव कंट्रोलर फंक्शन, all of that. Basically, if you look at supreme auditing institutions across the world, or CAG is considered a supreme auditing institution, the apex auditing institution. If you look at supreme auditing institutions in any democracy, whether US or UK or Australia, everywhere the supreme auditing institution does a performance audit. It does a performance audit. So Indian CAG said, जब ये सब कर सकते हैं तो then why can't we do a performance audit? That's there. Now, we will also do a performance audit. In a performance audit, 2 questions are asked. Or it is about the efficiency, the effectiveness and the economy. The efficiency, the effectiveness and the economy of expenditure. 3 E's. Today we live in a society where it's all 3 E's, 4 B's, 5 D's, 6 E's. So 3 E's, efficiency, economy and effectiveness of government expenditures is questioned. सवाल पूछा जा रहा है सरकार से. कौन पूछ रहा है? CAG. क्यों खर्च किया? Why only this way? What was your objective? All these kind of questions. It's basically asking, are the right things being done? And are things being done rightly? Simple. Simple is whatever is the policy objective, CAG will not question a policy objective. CAG will evaluate the performance of that policy when it involves expenditure from the exchequer. You get it? Matlab, government has decided that objective is to give health for all. देखिए मैं इसलिए भी बता रहा हूं ये क्योंकि हम हेल्थ पढ़ना ही हमें और आई एम टेलिंग यू इवन इन योर प्रीलिम्स एग्जामिनेशन एंड मेंस पिछले साल भी देयर वाज वन क्वेश्चन इन मेंस दिस ईयर आल्सो यू विल सी मोर क्वेश्चंस ऑन हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन कमिंग इन योर मेंस 10 years of RT Ayushman Bharat supremely important for your exam. Health for all. Suppose the government says the objective is health for all, to give health to all. And then the government says allocates 50,000 crores for whom? Which ministry? Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So now the CA, and for this the government announces a scheme, Ayushman Bharat. So now, and that this say 50,000 crore में से 30,000 crores are to be spent on Ayushman Bharat. Then the government, then the CAG will audit the Ayushman Bharat scheme. Performance. It will not ask, why did you ask, why do you want to give health for all? Why not temple for all? It will assume that the government has decided a policy, so we'll work with that policy and see the performance of that policy. Ayushman Bharat, so okay. To give health for all, okay. So what is being done? Are the right things being done and are things being done rightly? It will ask two kinds of questions. Firstly, it will ask, okay, the government has said that it will, in this Ayushman Bharat, there are some targets. Say, the targets are that you will open 6 lakh, God knows, jitne wellness center. I don't remember the exact number. I don't care to remember. You can for prelims exam. Say the government says we'll open 1 lakh wellness centers. In the next 3 years, say, or say 5 years or whatever years, CAG will ask, after 3 years, CAG will ask, भाई कितने बन गए? CAG will ask सवाल. CAG will ask, okay, how many of those have been made? What? Government says, sir, 50,000 has been made. Okay, sir. CAG says, okay, 50,000 have been made. ठीक है, 50% target has been achieved. Suppose government says, under the scheme, we will give cashless treatment to, say, certain number of population, certain percentage of, certain percentage of population, etc. So, okay. Government then gives the data that, okay, sir, 15 lakh people have received treatment under the scheme. ठीक है? Okay. CAG says, well done, good, nice. You spent so much money on this scheme and you have achieved these things. Now then, then CAG will ask the next question. That this money, or what was the objective? You will say, sir, abhi to bataya. 1 lakh centers and cashless treatment. No. What is the objective? How much percentage points you want to reduce mortality, sir? How much percentage points you want to reduce morbidity, sir? How much percentage point you want to reduce maternal mortality, infant mortality? Performance, sir, performance. Not just outlay, but also outcome. ये तो outlay था आपका. that we will build 1 lakh, etc. Ye outlay budgeting. Next is outcome. How much percentage points have you reduced mortality and all this by? That is what CAG will write in its report. पर यही नहीं रुकता ना CAG, यहां भी रुक जाए. Then the CAG will say something else also. Was there a better way this money could have been spent? मतलब रिपोर्ट कार्ड में आपके ये लिखा जाए, your son did not do well. If only he could have done these things, he would have done well. माँ बाप को किस बात पे ज्यादा गुस्सा आएगा? Parents will get angry when they know their son has not performed. They will be angry. But the teacher also saying, we think he should have done this, but he did not. Next year, again, same comment. Then parents are getting super angry. Third year, they push you in a government school. कोई point नहीं है भेजने का. What are you saying? Is that objective outlay outcome तक तो ठीक है. Now, it is asking a even भयानक सवाल. And this question will be asked, my dear friends, sooner or later on this scheme. This question will be asked very soon. But by that time, you will either be in government service or you would have left UPSC. 5 years from now, a question will be asked by the CAG. Was Ayushman Bharat the best way to achieve the objective of health for all? Was this the best policy move to achieve the objective of health for all? Are the right things being done? Okay, yes. And are the things being done rightly? That's the question. Okay, to achieve that objective of reducing maternal and mortality, was the idea of Ayushman Bharat, was the scheme itself a good way of implementing or was a good policy move, or a very different policy should have been adopted in the very first place? Health for all, should it be the Ayushman Bharat is in this tertiary healthcare, which is what? Hospital based healthcare. Primary is PHC, village level and PHC level. Then you have community, that is at the district level, and that's the CHC, the community health center, not even at the district level, for a couple of villages put together. And then the tertiary level is where you have BLK, Gangaram, all of this. Tertiary healthcare, that is. Ayushman Bharat is giving a insurance coverage, right? Up till 5 lakh rupees. This is an insurance-led model for tertiary healthcare delivery. Where who is providing insurance? State. And who's going to provide service delivery? Both private and state. Whether it is a great idea to go this way or not is the question that CAG will ask. Should this have been a insurance-led model of healthcare delivery or not? Is there another way that the government could have tried but did not try? Okay, we are going into the future. We are going to say what CAG will say 5 years from now. Badi bhavishyavani. There is another model. State funded. This is also state funded insurance model and state led सर्विस डिलीवरी मॉडल. आप पढ़ते बार बार मोदी केयर, मोदी केयर. मोदी केयर छोटा भाई ऑफ ओबामा केयर. पढ़ते. It's a private, it's a US led, or it's a basically insurance based model of healthcare delivery as is followed in. But there's another model. Which is that model? State funded, state led service delivery model. This is the UK model. Simple है ये, इसमें इतनी बकवास नहीं. Government will open 50 new hospitals. Government will appoint 10,000 new doctors. And government will give a cashless, free patient service to the patient, whoever comes. All free from the word go, provided by the state, funded by the state. Simple है. कोई घुमाने का कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं है. इट्स अ सिंपल सर्विस डिलीवरी. ऐसे लिया और ऐसे खाया. The merits and demerits of both I will teach you in issues related to health. But these are the two models. So that's about what? How efficiently the money is being spent in the very first place. One is the performance of Ayushman Bharat, but then you raise a question over the existence of Ayushman Bharat and say, it's like demonetization. The CAG is doing an audit of demonetization. First it will ask, okay, what are the objectives of demonetization? ये हमें आज तक नहीं समझ में आया. Whatever is the objective, then it will say what many of those objectives were achieved. Then it will say, to achieve that objective, say of fighting black money or terrorism or corruption, was demonetization a right way? Or could there have been other ways? So you see, the potential of CAG reports is huge. Now why will the CAG audit demonetization? Because government spend money to print notes. That is it. So it's anything, every money that is spent from the government's pocket. In your house also there is a CAG. That is your parents. As long as they are funding your education, they'll ask you questions. Even when they're not, they will ask you questions. So they are super CAG. But here CAG is only about government expenditure and policies related to government expenditure. So that's about what? Performance audit. Answer is very clear. There is no further controversy on one issue. Should the CAG do performance audits? The answer is yes. Most CAGs across the world do performance audits. And India has just started on the path of performance. Indian CAG has just started on the path of performance audit. And supreme auditing institutions across the world spend 70% of their time and resources on what? On performance audits. And only 30% of the times on financial and compliance audit. Of developed world में ये है. इंडिया में क्या है? उल्टा. We have not even reached there. 70 to 80% of time and resources of CAG is only spent on doing a financial and a compliance audit. And only 20 to 30% of its time is spent on performance audit. So yes, the CAG is expected to do more and more performance audits in the future. And even the scope of that audit will, even the scope of that audit will, can involve private service providers on behalf of the state and also what? Private service providers on behalf of the state, and also when the state has an explicit revenue sharing agreement with whom? With the private entity. Revenue sharing agreement is also there. Kyunki it's also about revenue which can come and money which is spent. Okay, that's it. Revenue foregone wala aspect bhi aa sakta hai. चलिए ये तो आप सब समझ ही गए. Last thing here on the scope, on the what? Powers of CAG. Power of CAG is two issues I did. One is should the CAG do performance audit or not? That's one issue. The other is should it audit private companies or? That's it. Has the CAG done performance audits in the past? Yes. The most well-known one, often talked about one, is the 2G spectrum audit and then the 2G scam. इतिहास के पन्नों में दूसरा भी दर्ज हो जाएगा, राफेल. Okay, so that is there. But 2G वाला तो एकदम है. Actually, the reputation of CAG is now at stake. देखिए, when the Hindu wrote articles in 2012 on the 2G spectrum issue, when the Hindu wrote articles on the 2G spectrum issue in 2011-12, the CAG report and Hindu report were going in the same direction. But now the CAG report and Hindu report are not going in different directions, they are going in opposite directions. अभी इज्जत की बात आगे. It's going to be a question about the reputation of the CAG and the quality of CAG reports. Okay, that is another issue that we'll anyways discuss. Okay, later. But nonetheless, the 2G spectrum audit done in 2010 to 11 period revealed that the Ministry of Telecom, कौन? Mr. Raja, A. Raja. Rajaji is coming from where? Chola Empire? Or a bit below only? Pandya. Chola Chera Pandya is coming from there. And so Raja is, इनको हम कुछ भी कह सकते हैं, कोई नहीं पूछ रहा अभी, कोई डर नहीं हमें इनसे. Okay. So that is that. Now, what is happening? That the Ministry of Telecom allocated spectrum on a first come, first serve basis. On a first come, first serve basis, that if anybody applied for spectrum for a 2G license, anybody who applied first will be given the license first. They have to comply with the basic minimum condition. Who applies first will be given the license first. To private telecom service providers. Then but when CAG audited, CAG said if only they would have allocated spectrum in a different way. What? And that was auctioning route. Then what would have happened? Then the state would have earned what? State would have earned revenue. and the state is allocating the revenue, what spectrum, which is a public good. It is a public scarce natural resource. So the Ministry of Telecom की जेब से नहीं आ रहा है. It is a scarce public natural resource. It is a scarce public natural resource. And which is allocated, if it could have been allocated by the auctioning route, would have resulted in a revenue gain of, according to different formulas, from 60,000 crores to 1,76,000 crores. Calculated according to different formulas, this kind of revenue could have come to the government but did not come. अलग लेवल का करप्शन है, पैसा आने से पहले ही. कहां आप सोच रहे हैं कि जेब से पैसा ले लिया, आने ही नहीं दिया जेब तक. सो थोड़ा पढ़ाई लिखाई करना पड़ता है ऐसे लेवल का करप्शन करने के लिए. अनपढ़ों से ऐसा वाला नहीं हो पाता है. कोशिश करते हैं तो दिख जाता है जल्दी. So now 60,000 to 70. So this was the revenue which could have come, but this revenue was forgone. There is a notional loss. Notional loss because this loss never happened. Because the government executive could say, we never spent the money badly. But you prevented the money that could have actually come to the exchequer. Ultimately, the government rejected. Government kept saying, nahi, CAG औकात में रहे, must not do performance audit. But ultimately, it was done. Eventually, when the next time the 3G spectrum allocation happened, it was done by the auctioning route. अभी एक और ऑक्शन हुआ है उसके बाद. उसमें क्या हुआ है मेरी समझ के बाहर. क्या 4G ऑक्शन के स्पेक्ट्रम में क्या हुआ है कि बस जियो ही जी रहा है. That 4G auction spectrum has serious procedural shortcomings apparently, but a CAG audit of that is yet to come out, and it is not coming out before the 2019 elections. So that's that. So the Rafale audit has come out, but this audit is not going to come out, the 4G audit. But the 3G spectrum allocation was done to the auctioning route. This was said that this is how CAG promotes good governance. Post-mortem करने से क्या होता है? It prevents, it acts as a deterrence value. Police did false encounter. Post-mortem tells police did false encounter. Criticism of police, that police does false encounter. Next time police knows there will be a post-mortem, फिर गाली पड़ेगा. That is why police does not do false encounter. Police finds new ways. पहले पुलिस said, यहाँ खड़ा है, हमने गोली मारा. He was 500 meters away and running. We shot, and he died. Post-mortem says, Goli was shot from 2 meters, not 500 meters. This discrepancy. Next time you will ensure that let him run 500 meters. That is important. You learn new ways. It's a cat and mouse game. So people who, why am I saying this? Not as a cynic, to tell you that corruption will always be there. The question is, how do you reduce it? You can't eliminate it. जो आपको कह रहा है कि once I become the चौकीदार, there will be no corruption. ये सबसे बड़ा. Because it's no one institution firstly alone can do it, and there will always be new ways which will be discovered. But the question is, can the anti-corruption agencies keep up to the task and limit its impact? That's the question to be asked, and reduce its impact. It's not, if the Indian public thinks that there will ever be a Ram Rajya, there will never be. Because even in mature democracies of the West, there is corruption. And there is corruption has taken supremely sophisticated forms. वो एक अलग ही लेवल का करप्शन है, वो हमारे यहाँ भी समझ के बाहर है वाला करप्शन. हुआ तो वो भी है, लेकिन अभी हम मान नहीं जाएंगे, क्योंकि that is got nothing to do with CAG. Can corruption happen without causing any loss of exchequer to the exchequer? I told you, right? It can happen. Fire safety audit. Will the CAG audit? No. Why? Because that doesn't involve any expenditure on behalf of the state or revenue that could have come to the state. But that also is corruption. The real example of that was the CDSCO, the current hip transplant tamasha, right? The CDSCO is not the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, or no ministry is losing any money by allowing outdated hip implants to be sold in the country. The government is neither making money nor is losing money. But the permissiveness of the government allows private players to make money and adversely affects the public good. So that's institutionalized corruption at a level which has got nothing to do with exchequer, which has got everything to do with the nexus between drug regulators and what? Private companies. Or that's crony capitalism. That's open and shut crony capitalism. Okay. So corruption can happen because of weak oversight also. But CAG का role वहाँ नहीं. That's not the CAG's job or mandate or responsibility. So CAG alone cannot do good governance or tackle corruption or all varieties of corruption. I hope that much is clear. I want to drill down this point ताकि आप मुझसे ये ना सवाल पूछें कि सर CAG क्यों नहीं करता ये, क्योंकि CAG का वो काम. Okay. Other institutions are supposed to take care of it. I hope this much is clear. So that's about the scope of audit. The third is about the quality of audits. देखिए, okay, one more thing. Tomorrow, can you July batch? You are having economy classes. Monday to onwards you have normally, right? You have the economy classes. Huh. And June batch, security, is it complete? Almost done? Done? Done. Okay. So most likely tomorrow will be an off. Sunday is tomorrow, right? Either ma'am will take the class or there will be a off, whatever, but you will get the mail. तो आप मेल ही चेक कर लीजिएगा, मैं भी जाके मुझे पता चलेगा exactly क्या है. So this is a half an hour or so, we'll put that mail to you, you just check. Now that's there. So the third and the last thing to talk about here for you is what? the quality of the audits. Last thing, the quality of ये देखिए, ये सवाल उठेगा अब not on Rafael, but चलिए कुछ और बात कर लेते 5 मिनट, थक गया, मैं भी थक गया, क्या बकवास है। पुलवामा क्या, देखिए क्या है, पहली बात आपको पता होना चाहिए, द पाथ टू हेवन गोज थ्रू जम्मू एंड कश्मीर। चलो बुलावा आया है, जन्नत ने बुलाया। ऑल दोज पीपल who want to go to heaven to meet their 72 lovely women, their path goes to Jammu and Kashmir only. Whether they come from Pakistan or from wherever they come, their path goes through Jammu and Kashmir. So that they ensure that they go. But they try to take others along because there are 72 women waiting. How can one handle alone? They try to take others, whether they are interested to go or not go. However, some people asked in some movies a couple of days ago, how's the Doval Saab said, this is Naya Bharat. Paresh Rawal ji said, it is Naya Bharat. Why? Because we will do surgical strike, it will deter the Pakistanis from trying to attack India again. They will not dare to do so because हम एक के बदले 10 सर लेके आएंगे। ले आए तो थे कुछ सर। Did that deter the Pakistanis? We have to ask again, how's the Josh? Time has arrived for asking again. Seems एक बार में समझ में नहीं आया। किसे? दोवल जी को। There are some people who have decided that they will go to heaven. उनको क्या समझाएंगे जिनका रास्ता जाना है जन्नत का? उनको तो जाना है और जाने वाले को कोई रोक? You can't deter our ideology by saying that 1 for 10. अरे 10 तो लो 10 और अब लो 100. अभी we should increase it to 100. 1 for 100. 40 मतलब 4,000 we'll bring this time. Okay. Will that deter? No. It should deter who? Doval ji. Doval ji must realize that it was Mr. Doval himself, then IB chief in Kandahar, taking Jaish chief and releasing. है ना? भूल गया आपको Kandahar chief, the hijack. Who was the one? Doval was the IB. Then, this 2001 parliament attack, did the Pakistanis learn? Then इनके बीच में कारगिल भी था, did the Pakistanis learn? मुंबई में तो हमने कुछ नहीं किया, उनके हौसले बढ़ गए. Now we did what? Uri Baba, they did not learn. The point is that Indians did not learn, that the Pakistanis will not learn. Who did not learn the lesson? You do the same thing again and again, expecting a different outcome. You are stupid. Many were saying, अरे अब तो पाकिस्तान देख के दिखाए, जवाब दे दिया ना पाकिस्तान ने जवाब. The ball is in whose court now? India's. And now there's a difference. Can India do? Kai people are experts on Facebook, Twitter and WhatsApp. They know what India must do. India's National Security Advisor, India's Cabinet Committee on Security, India's Foreign Secretary, India's IB Raw Chiefs, India's Army Chiefs have yet not decided what to be done. But they know. This is confidence of Indian middle class, which when opens its mouth, utters gutter. Nothing else. Please tell me, how will you fight a limited war under a nuclear umbrella? Pakistan has explicitly, firstly it has a no first use policy. India has. Suppose India sticks to its no first use policy and Pakistan sticks to its first use policy. Pakistan is not even saying that we will launch, and now Pakistan has changed its first use policy to say tactical nuclear weapons. Where they are saying, you attack our territory, you manage to capture our territory, we may not bomb your territory. We will bomb Pakistani territory. They are saying that we will use 5 to 10 kiloton nuclear weapons and attack Pakistani territory itself. You come and capture Lahore. We will bomb Lahore with nuclear weapons. Who will die? Your troops, Indian troops will die. Pakistani civilians will die, so they will die. Koi baat. You have to understand, this is a game at a very different level. How do you fight an opponent? How do you fight an opponent which is ready to blow himself up? You can't fight that opponent very easily. And that is what many don't realize. कई को क्या लगता है कि आपके पास लाठी है तो मारेंगे भैंस को तो आप ही के डायरेक्शन में जाएगी, भैंस मुड़ के आपको भी मार सकती है. Who doesn't realize? Indian policy makers know. They know. That is why they are quiet. Who doesn't know? Indian middle class. But Indian middle class has no view on anything else, has no knowledge about anything, but the gutter mouths will open their mouth and tell you what India needs to do. क्या army must be given a free hand? किसने हाथ रोक रखा भाई? हमने पकड़ लिया क्या army के हाथ? The army will calculate, and there are people sitting up there talking about it already, and they also know that the Pakistani side is also going to be on its highest alert, ready for any eventuality. It's not a game of PUBG. So, and there are real things at stake. So, what is the solution? There is a reason when you will see the editorials coming on the Pulwama attacks. I think Sham Saran wrote today. So, whenever you will see, I have not read the editorial, but I am very sure nobody will have an answer to a effective military solution, because the options themselves stay very limited in terms of military solutions. And if you have a military solution to avoid, to be sure about what Pakistan will do and what India will do to tackle that, please write a 5,000 word essay on that. We will tweet it to the Prime Minister and to Mr. Doval and to the BJP chief. Why? Because that's your chance to be the national security advisor. Please do that. Lateral entry, seedhe, you will be the youngest NSA. These are serious questions for which there are no easy answers. And that is the whole thing. Can India do an airstrike? Yes, can India can do an airstrike also. India can do many things. The question is, what the Pakistanis will do about it. हम डरते हैं क्या? जो नहीं डरते उन्हें सबसे पहले भेजा जाए. कहां? बॉर्डर. क्योंकि हम तो डरते हैं. The Facebook warriors need to realize war is not fought on Facebook. War is fought on the battlefield, and which has consequences. Okay, that is, and consequences of what died. RB 40 have died. Tomorrow you'll have a full-scale war. How many people died in Kargil? Many soldiers. Indians don't talk. Their blood doesn't boil because soldiers died in Kargil. Because India won the Kargil war, है ना? तो वो अभी सब भूल गए. So it's a more complex question, and there are no easy answers. The question is, how does India deal with terrorism and insurgency in a limited war scenario in a nuclear umbrella. And nobody talks about the fact, which is the most unpopular thing to say, that part of that whole mess is about what? It's partly about Kashmir, if not completely. It's partly about definitely the Kashmir question. People say terrorism must stop and then we'll talk Kashmir. You have to understand that terrorism will also stop when you talk about Kashmir. Is that a guarantee? Well, no. Well, then guarantee is there nowhere in foreign policy. Right? So that's there. So you have to talk about Kashmir also. But does that mean that India cannot effectively exercise a military option? Probably yes. And probably the policy makers are smarter than us. That is why they are there. And we are not there. Right? So give them some space. Don't give them advice on a topic which we know little about. We know something about public policy. That we can talk. Okay. Other countries have done this. And there's a very big difference in public policy and military policy. In military policy, you have to judge what the opponent can do. And there is a variety of scenarios you have to prepare yourself for. That's not the case with public policy. It's kind of predictable. It's kind of predictable that, this is bound to happen. In 2013 itself, it was written that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan will not achieve its target in 2019. Forget 2025, not even by 2030. Because there is no other experience of no other country in the world which has eliminated open defecation at such a pace that India plans to do. It's just not possible. And they also gave the reasons why it is not possible. Okay. And that is there. Now, it is in this context, public policy is relatively easier to do than military policy. And that is why it's an extremely complex game. But some people know all the answers. Those people must be given the gun, sent to the border, or must be made India's NSA. Because we clearly need bright minds. IIT, IIM के बच्चे, मेरे एक रिलेटिव हैं. अभी ऐसे रिलेटिव्स आ जाते बाहर बीच में. I ignore. But my relative tweets. Yet this is the time that India should, not listen to anybody in Jammu and Kashmir. The army should be given a free hand and whoever comes in the way must be done away with. I have no clue what he's talking, but I presume that he's talking some sense. His 5 generations have never been close to the army. He has 2 daughters, one studies in US, other daughter studies in the plush school in Pune. He himself earns a 7-8 figure salary. But the army must teach a lesson. क्यों भाई? क्योंकि we have watched Uri. Army must teach a lesson. Army is like a button. We'll press here. Army will teach a lesson. People who have no stake, people who have never done anything in terms of realizing the gravity of situation, that army is also about people whose lives are lost. When there will be a war, more lives will be lost. And it's not about saying that there must be no war. War is an essential instrument of statecraft. War happens, lives are lost. But don't give advice sitting in your street, Arnab Goswami, India seeks revenge. Hashtag, the India seeks revenge. Bhai, Arnab Goswami seeks revenge, I totally get it. So Arnab Goswami should lead from the front. Should give one gun to Arnab Goswami and say, hold the mic and here is the gun. Please seek revenge. Jahan se aapka hai revenge, you seek revenge. Warmongering you are doing, it's the first middle class in the world which is doing warmongering. Saying that we want war, please give us war. We want war. Because war is the solution, theek hai, war is the solution. Then please go and fight. The middle class sitting, अरे कोई tweet कर रहा है, आप बैठ, US में लोग, I have another friend, works in Google, in California. He's tweeting from there, India should seek revenge. अरे भाई तुम आ जाओ यहाँ, वो न्यूक्लियर बम वहां से यहीं दिल्ली में ही फटेगा, तुम वहां बैठे हो, इंडिया शुड सीक रिवेंज. अरे व्हाट इंडिया शुड सीक रिवेंज? हाउ? People often assume that just like you seek revenge with your neighbor living next door because he parked car in your space, that's how you seek revenge with Pakistan. That's not how you seek revenge. That's not how foreign policy is done. But ऐसे लग रहा है लोगों में मजाक चल रहा है. Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, everybody is expert on foreign policy. Only with respect to Pakistan. Next, they know jack shit about what is NASSCOM doing, what is H1B visa issue, what is worker rights and issues of Indian workers in West Asia, what must be India's energy security policy. कुछ नहीं. India's Africa relations कोई फर्क नहीं. Only Pakistan. बस कोई तो है. So that is that. But चलिए कोई नहीं. अभी छोड़ देते हैं. So this is largely the audit issue. We'll discuss the next time. The quality of the audit issue. And RTI that's been done. RTI has been done. We'll discuss RTI. We'll repeat RTI again. Don't worry. But लोकपाल तो किसी ने नहीं पढ़ा होगा. लोकपाल छुआछूत की बीमारी will discuss. Lokpal will discuss. After this, let's talk about the Lokpal. Huh? Next class we'll have Lokpal.